This is the Formless Podcast, number 37, with Tyler, the superhuman, and me, Dustin.
Good morning.
Morning. So I did a little Instagram live video this morning, right when I got here, basically telling everybody that I had nothing planned because you told me you had some topics you wanted to talk about. So
awesome.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah, no. So one of the things that kind of like I've noticed recently, like in martial arts class, is that when you are teaching, this is something I've noticed that you're doing. That's good. That's fantastic. Like when you're teaching, and since we've got our black belts, and then we've shifted where we're at as far as now you are no longer solely attending class as a student because now you are teaching.
Yeah.
And the beginner's class. So the cool thing that I noticed about you is that you have a really good way of explaining things now that has gotten more rich with time. And better over time is that you'll come over and you'll explain, I'll be explaining something to a student and I'll be like, oh yeah, well you just step forward and punch and throw your punch out, and you come up and you're like, well actually, so you're like, okay, yeah, so here's what you do, and you get all into it, you get all into your stance and everything, and I'm just like, well, this is how you do it. And you're like, no, yeah, you get down in here and you step forward, and then I like to bring my hand back, and and I'm just saying, the way you explain it is really cool, and it's really solidified these moves and these techniques and set work in your kind of in your how you explain them, your repertoire, your library, whatever you want to say, and it's just really enriched it, and it touching on that theme of teaching something as a way to solidify it. I guess that's kind of the theme.
Well, it's funny in the school, when you reach a certain point, about anytime that you're more advanced than another student, you're kind of expected to help that student. Mm-hmm. And I think that helps solidify it for yourself. And when COVID happened, when we shut the doors for a little while and we were doing private lessons and Zoom lessons and all of that stuff, it made me realize that this was fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed helping other people get it, because it's kind of I've heard training martial arts is like teaching somebody a new language. Okay? And we're going to teach you a new language that you have no idea what anything is.
None of the building blocks.
Yeah, you have no building blocks. You don't know the alphabet. You don't know the pronunciations. You don't know anything. And after your first lesson, you might have a grasp on the first letter. No matter how long or how in depth we go, you might, if you're lucky, you get a grasp of that first letter, right? And so when we were...
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. You're actually explaining it really well.
Yeah. So when we started doing the COVID classes and stuff, and I hate talking about COVID. I'm so done with it. But this is where we're at. So this is the way it is. I realized that in order to keep it fun for the student and the person I'm helping, I had to be excited about what I was doing. I have to be and which isn't hard. It's martial arts. I love martial arts. So it was good. But I had to keep them engaged. And it was challenging doing it through a screen or even in person and standing, 6 feet apart. Some people were like, oh no. And I'm like, well, we're all going to get it. So it doesn't matter to me. But in doing all of those different things, I had to find different ways, and people learn different ways. And I've had this discussion with my wife because she's been in my class before, and she would ask me a question, and I would have this look on my face of disgust or irritation or whatever. Well, she would think I was mad at her, so she'd quit asking me questions. And we had this big discussion about it one night a couple months back. And I was like, no, my face tells everything. I don't lie very well. So my face will explain whatever, is going on inside my head. But I was trying to think of a way to explain whatever it was we were working on in a way that she could relate. Right? So like, and when I'm thinking and I'm serious about something, I get a serious or a pissed off look on my face, and so she's sitting there thinking I'm mad at her, and I'm just trying to think of a way to communicate so she gets what I'm trying to convey. And I don't know if that's answering your question per se, but
it's in the ballpark.
Yeah. So I think it's twofold there. So like I need to explain the information in a way that the student understands, but I need to make it exciting and reach them in a way that makes them want to keep trying. Mm-hmm. Because some of this stuff is super simple. Punches and things, your basic punches and kicks, fairly simple. You can learn that stuff in a few minutes. But as you progress, the things get more detailed, more defined, more difficult, and it becomes frustrating, right? Like you teach the alphabet first. We're learning a new language. You might teach the alphabet and some simple words like sit, cat, dog, mom, dad, those kinds of things, and you usually progress fairly quickly in the beginning. But then you start adding sentences and phrases and maybe paragraphs and things like that of stuff to say, and you start stumbling. And it gets frustrating. It was like, well, wait a minute. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, it was easy. And I was going, I was just flying through this stuff, and now I'm struggling. So you have to find a way to keep those people that were once excelling and now they're struggling. You have to keep them engaged. You have to keep them motivated and excited to do it. So it's almost like a whole nother skill set, but it is. But it's also like, in the broad scheme of things, it's a whole nother martial art in a way.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. You're teaching them how to do punches and kicks and those kinds of things. And that's on like a whole nother level. But then you're trying to figure out how that person learns, right? Like some are visual learners, some are audio learners, audible learners. Some are studious where they'll write stuff, they can read the set of instructions and figure it out. And some are a blend of all of those things. But I think the important thing is to genuinely be excited to be there working with that person, whomever it is, whether it's a group or one person or whatever. I'm genuinely excited. When I walk in the door, I know it's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
And so that really helps me. And then also, I've had terrible teachers and I've had really excellent teachers in school. I always look at that and go, like, I think back about that when I'm teaching, when I get ready to start a class or whatever. I always look at that and go, I do not want to be like these guys. These terrible teachers that I had. I don't want this person, irregardless of whether they stay or they quit after the first day. I don't want them to be like, oh, well, that guy was one of these people over here.
Right.
So that's my thing. That's what I think about. But I think the big part of it is just being able to convey to that person in a way they understand what it is, because that's a win. If I can give them that and they understand it, even if they don't do the techniques correct, they'll get it eventually because they have the information and it's conveyed in a way that they can.
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate to have some pretty good teachers in martial arts myself. Sensei Blue, freaking amazing teacher. I think the world of that guy as a teacher. He's just an awesome, inspiring person. And I'd love to sit down and talk with him about that topic one day. Just
Sensei Blue.
Yeah, if you're listening, we're gonna search you out here. And then Sensei Court too.
Right.
Sensei Court's a great teacher, and he had good teachers. Sensei Blue, he had good teachers. But I've taken a little bit from everyone, and even like students that you're teaching, you can get something out of them. They teach you as much as you teach them. I'm a firm believer of that.
Like it's actually two-way exchange.
Exactly.
You're not just being the teacher, but the student's actually teaching you something.
And the cool thing about it too, especially when I first started, you'd work with kids and they'd ask you a question that you never thought about, and you're just like, well, I don't know. I've never even. I can't remember one off the something specific, but kids are brutally honest. There's a certain age where they lose that, but like a kid will tell you like, hey, you've got bad breath, or you got you got a hair out of place, or whatever.
They vomit it out.
They just, it comes right out. And at a certain age, they start to lose that. They get a sense of the world around them. But like Tom, my son, my youngest, is a perfect example of that. He's 8 years old. He's not as bad as he was. Not that he was bad, but he wasn't as vocal about it as he was then. And now that he's 8, he's kind of realized that there's certain things that aren't okay to like talk about. But like we'd be in the grocery store and somebody'd be talking really loud, and he'd be like, hey, that guy's really loud. Or what's wrong with that guy, or that person kind of smells funny, or and he'd just say it, or he'd ask them. He'd ask a complete stranger, like, why are you so loud? It makes for some interesting times. But now that he's a little bit older, he's starting to realize some of the social norms and cues that like there's certain things that you can talk about and there's certain things you can't. But kids, they just say what's on their mind,
right?
And they'll just ask you stuff, and a lot of times it's stuff that I've never thought of. And so it makes me step back and kind of go, okay, that's a question that's not in my wheelhouse of thought here. So how do this is brand new information. Now I've got to like work with this, think about it, and give them an answer, because I can't BS this kid, because he'll just tell you right out,
right.
or she'll just tell you right out, like, that's garbage. So it's a genuine, I got to give them something genuine that they can hang on to, that they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or no, it doesn't make sense, but I'll kind of figure it out. Kids are my favorite to work with just because of that reason right there. They'll just tell you, well, like, this sucks. Okay, we're going to change it up. So I get that. I really like that.
That's just something you really enjoy.
Yeah.
That's something you get all excited about, when you come in to explain something to someone, a student or something that says, oh, how do I do this? And you're like, okay, and you'll all get into it, like, super excited. And I'm like, man, I want to relearn this now.
Well, like, I don't want anyone to quit.
Right.
And like this topic, and talking with Sackman a couple weeks ago, the Sack Life official, shout out to Tim, awesome guy. It just inspired me. It invigorated me, and like I want people to get out of martial arts what I've gotten out of it.
Yeah.
It's prepped me for so many things in life, and I've been able to deal with so many hard situations. Cars breaking down, losing my job, all of this stuff, and I wouldn't have been able to deal with it this way. Like, I might now just be getting out of bed had I not been trained in martial arts.
Ooh, man.
It's heavy stuff, and there's science behind that. Exercising is healthy, not just for your body, but for your mind, mentally as well. And I'm no specimen of physical fitness. I mean, I exercise, but I'm not a Greek god by any stretch of the imagination. but all of that stuff has helped me, has given me clarity and the fortitude to keep moving forward. And if I can give somebody a little piece of that, like, yeah, that's the name of the game for me. That's the name of the game.
And they walk out the dojo doors
and
carrying something that they didn't walk in
with. Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah.
It's cool. And everybody's got problems. Everybody's got issues that they deal with. And for those 45 minutes that I've got them in class, I want them to not worry about that stuff and maybe step out of the door with a tool that they can deal with those issues. Not that they need to go punch and kick those issues, but maybe it's given them a little bit of resilience or a little bit of grit to face those things.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And that seems like that is a thing that can really apply as far as, well, it's such a deep topic. Like what we're talking about being the teacher and being excited and getting the student all excited. And it seems like if that, that would be nice if that applied all across the spectrum to like somebody who is a music teacher who teaches guitar or somebody who teaches anything,
Yeah,
and they get all excited about it just the way you do.
A good friend of mine's an art teacher. Well, she was an art teacher. Now she's a vice principal. Yeah, she's a vice principal now. She just moved up the ladder a little bit. But it's a different, those are two different worlds. You went from teaching to now you're like the disciplinarian, authoritative kind of figure,
Overlooking
everything. And she's a really talented teacher. Like she's just got a real gift for it. And my wife too, she homeschools our three boys, and they both have a real talent for explaining things to the children. And the art teacher person I'm talking about, Chris, I'll use her first name. I've not seen her in action in class, but I've seen her with other children, her own children, my children. And though they're humans, she talks to them like human beings. My wife talks to our children and other children. They're human beings. They're not this
alien-esque.
Yeah. And it's just is that something you're supposed to be doing? What is the thing that we're working on right now? And it's not like a mean thing. It's just like matter of fact. This is, there's an expectation here. Now we're going to have fun. We're going to learn something, but you're going to be along on this ride with me, kind of thing. Like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think when you are teaching somebody something, irregardless of whatever that topic is, whether it's martial arts or art or history or math, you have to be excited about it.
You have to be.
You have to have some enthusiasm. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mm-hmm. The one teacher in class, Bueller. Yeah.
Ben Stein.
Ben Stein. Yeah. Yeah. Is it Stein? I think it's Stein. Somebody will correct us if we're wrong, I'm sure. But who wants to go through life like that? And especially a kid with the short attention span. Little boys are ripe for this, because if something's not happening, you got about 30 seconds to make something happen, or you've lost them. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of energy. They need to get that energy out. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. If I spend too much time talking with a certain age group, they're gone. So it's like, spit it out, get what you have to say out in about 20 seconds, and then get right to doing something,
Yeah.
Get right to it. And there's ways to deal with it. You change it up frequently, give them that information, just give them enough so they can do the thing that you're trying to do, and then maybe break in the middle of that action and give them a little bit more, and then go back to the action.
Piece it in.
Piecemeal kind of thing. But yeah, I just love it. I just love doing that. And that was kind of my favorite part of the job when I was at my old job, was helping people with things. So I really enjoyed explaining stuff to people in a way that was tangible to them, that they could understand, and then they could take that and apply it to whatever it was we were doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the, you think about it, so you have, like you're talking about the young boys, right?
Yeah.
Teaching them, and if you hit a roadblock, you've got about 30 seconds
or they're gone.
Or they're gone. That's so interesting, because like let's say you have a 10-year-old, right? And like you were saying, and you're trying to teach them something. Let's just assume that as far as learning abilities, that's all normal, right? They're all normal.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because a kid being so young, like right around 10, right? That little boy, and his attention span is all over the place. Well, assuming he has no learning disabilities or no problems understanding something, the only thing that's stopping conveying that information and learning to occur is that kid's attention span. That's all over the place. Yeah. And so to harness that attention span and get them in a state to where they want to learn, you got to be excited about it, which then creates them to be excited about it, which then opens up their to want to learn, right?
Yeah. That's kind of my thinking.
Did I kind of explain that the right way?
Perfect. Yeah, that's my thinking. And it's funny, if you watch kids with anything, YouTube, TV, their phone or whatever, if it doesn't grasp them right away, they're moving on to the next thing. They're moving on to the next thing. And so we're such the society that we have right now is such a, like, give it to me yesterday kind of thing, that, like, if you want them to follow along with something, you better be on your toes, and you better be giving them something that they are going to engage with. If you just drone on and on and on, they're gone. You've lost them. Unless you can make them tired. Like, if you can work them, like I've seen that too. Like, there's ways around it. There's an avenue around that issue. You make them exert themselves, and they're sweating and tired and panting and whatnot, and then you're like, okay, I got you now.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not going to run around. I got you for a little bit here.
One of the best things you can do, that my dad is a retired horse trainer.
Yeah.
And so before you try to get on a horse and ride it, one strategy is that you run it around in the arena with a whip or whatever. And you
work it.
You work the horse, and you get it all sweaty and tired, and then if it's not willing to listen, you keep working it until it's like so tired that it's like, oh, whatever, all right, whatever to stop this. So that, I know that strategy.
Oh, I'm sure. Did he imply it on you?
Oh, not on me. But on horses, it works real, like on the troubled horses, the tough ones. Or any animal.
Yeah.
You get them tired, you get them working.
That's funny. We have a dog. He come from the pound. He's a great dog. He's a puppy. I don't know. He's a mutt. He looks like he might have a little Dalmatian in him, and maybe lab or something. But he just is a bundle of energy. And in the morning, he's like,
bouncing off the walls.
Where can we go? I want to go for a walk. He's just And I've been taking him for a walk every day. Didn't walk him this morning, but I'll do that when I get home. But we get in about 2 miles. And when he comes home, he's just as chill as can be. Like, he'll take a long nap. He got that energy out. I gave him that. And when I walk him about a half a mile. to a dirt road and I take him off the leash because I know I'm not going to run into anybody. He's not going to jump. There's nobody for him to like jump on or harass or anything like that. And he's just got open road and he just takes off running all over the place. And it's awesome for him. I mean, it's just great to get all of that out. And let him get that out, and then I can reel him back in. And the walk to the road is a lot different than the walk from the road to my house.
Oh,
like
okay.
On the way there, he's just like, I'm fighting with him on the leash. He's just trying to take off. He's jumping all over the place and trying to, like, he's just super excited. He knows what's going to happen. And on the walk home, it's just like he's right by my side. It's like, oh man, that was great. Thanks. You know,
Daddy, let's just get home so I can eat.
yeah. It's awesome. It's super cool.
Yeah, that's a perfect example right there. Is that?
Yeah, and I think puppies, or and to a further extent horses, are a lot like children. Like you gotta let them get that energy out, exert themselves a little bit. And then you can kind of find a way to get through to them. I don't know what your early school life was like, but mine was, sit in a desk for hours just listening to teachers, and it was incredibly difficult. I was a terrible student.
But you're a great teacher now.
Well, thanks. But it was an incredibly difficult period of life where, you're just sitting here and like, okay, now I've got to write or read or listen to you for hours on end, and you're just waiting for recess or lunch where I can go run around for 20 minutes or whatever. I don't think children, especially small children, are meant to just sit and be dictated to. I don't know. That's my own personal.
They gotta go climb a tree and.
Yeah, they gotta run around. They gotta like skin their knee and like go do stuff. Go have a little bit of an adventure.
That's so interesting. What so for that's something I've been looking at recently a lot, like focusing on is. Even if somebody is really into something that I'm not, like it's interesting. Like obviously we're both in the martial arts.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like if somebody was really into making bracelets, and they were all into the components that make up a bracelet, the string that goes around your wrist and then the beads and maybe feathers or whatever goes on a bracelet, and they're just all into that and like making bracelets. I appreciate that, more now than I did. But even if it's something I don't care about, they're so into it. I'm like, man, I like their enthusiasm. Like they're really into it. And they may only really be into it that day, that week, that year, but in that moment, they're really into it, or they may be in it the rest of their lives, but they're really, really into it. And I just appreciate that enthusiasm. And what do you like? Do we know anything of why that works? If you've got a kid and you're teaching them a private lesson and you get all excited, now the kid gets excited. What is that? What's the science behind it?
I don't know what the science is behind
like
that.
Like mirror neurons? You've heard of mirror neurons?
I think it's contagious.
It's like a disease.
Yeah, no, well, like it is. It is though. I think enthusiasm is contagious.
Yeah.
If I'm excited about it and I'm excited that they're there, then I think that they kind of get excited. And it's, kids are like people. They're all different. And some are really shy. And I mean, I've spent half of a lesson trying to get a kid just to take off his shoes and step on the mat just because they're nervous. Or scared or whatever. I've spent an entire lesson just working with somebody, trying to get them to focus. It just depends. Everybody's got a little bit of individuality. Everybody's a little bit different. But I think that if you are excited to be there, that rubs off. That comes off, you know. And it's a lot of just being appreciative that they're gonna sit there with you or stand there with you and work.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm glad that when somebody comes in, I'm excited that they're there and that they, whether they pick me or not to work with, like it's my privilege.
You got a
like,
chunk of their time.
Yeah. Like you're going to spend time with me that you're not going to get back. And they may or may not realize that depending on who it is. But it's a privilege. So like I can't help but not be excited about it.
Right.
You know, it's just cool.
It's just cool.
I feel like, you know, martial arts have been around for years and years and years, thousands of years. You know, and depending on your views on it, I think it's a great tool to deal with all of the garbage that life gives you, whether it's stress or injuries or depression, anxiety, all of those things, and it's I feel like it's like it gets popular for different reasons, whether it's a movie or a sport or something, you know, something like that, and it almost does it a disservice in my eyes. Like, yeah, it's flashy, it's exciting, it's visually appealing, but there's so much that's like not even scratching the surface of it. It's like meeting somebody really attractive, meeting a really beautiful woman, and then finding out that like she's works at an orphanage, or you know what I mean? Like you see this thing, and on the appearance, on the visual spectrum, you're like, wow, that's a knockout. You know, that, wow, she's smoking. And then like you talk to this person and you realize that there's a whole nother dimension to them. There's depth there, that they have purpose, and I don't know, like it's the reasons why it gets popular, I think, are very visually appealing. Right?
Martial arts gets popular.
You know, it gets popular like because of Cobra Kai, right?
Right.
Cobra Kai is like super flashy, and they're doing all of these things, but the whole benefit to martial arts, like that doesn't even scratch the surface. It doesn't even come within. It's not even in the same ballpark, right? And like UFC is super popular.
Super.
But it's a gladiator sport. We're just watching two people beat the crud out of each other. And I'm guilty as this is the next guy. I love watching fights, boxing, you know, you name it. But there's so much more depth there than just two people standing in a cage or a ring and beating each other up. There's a science behind it. There's a strategy. There's a chess game. There's the physical fitness and the preparation that it takes to get to there. There's the mental game that you have to prepare yourself for, the preparation you have to do. Because I mean, nobody likes pain. I don't care who you are. I don't care how tough you are. Somebody punches you or you stub your toe, your immediate reaction is ow, and get away from whatever it was that just hurt you. Mm-hmm. And you have to, there's a mental shift that has to take place. You have to be like, okay, that was the past. and now we're moving on to the next thing. And I might have to move past the next thing, you know. But there's so much more to it than just what you see on TV or what you see on the internet or reading a book. And I want to give that to people. Like, I'm not a competitor. I'm not going to be like I'm not going to go compete in UFC or be on a TV show kicking people. Like, it's not going to happen. And I'm fine with that. I don't want that. I want to give people more of what it's, the essence of it. Like, more of what it's about than just what's on the surface. Does that make sense?
That totally
like, I feel like I
does.
just went way off topic there.
No. That's interesting because, you know, a week ago today, you know, the date we're doing this, was the Super Bowl. And so
yes.
the Super Bowl, and I throughout my life, I've not ever been a fan of a lot of sports. It's just never been my thing.
Yeah.
But you know, I watch the Super Bowl usually every year and a sports game or two here or there. But the one thing I did appreciate about the Super Bowl that I really, and it was probably the first time ever, is that watching two teams play against each other.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there, and it's the highest level of football that you're gonna watch. You know, we're gonna watch for that year.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's just a bunch of guys running around,
smashing into each
yeah,
other.
smashing. You know, throwing a pigskin at each other. But there's actually strategy and tactics and, you know, physical conditioning and all that stuff. So, like you said, it's not just the visual and what you see. There's so much more that went into it underneath it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have really appreciated that to the extent I do now unless I had my black belt, you know. And
for sure, because it takes work.
It takes work, and all the little refinements and little details and techniques that is part of being a black belt. And then I see those in other people who are at a high level.
Yeah.
You know, like the Super Bowl and those players.
And anything that takes effort, there's always a little bit more than what's on the surface.
Oh man.
You know. There's all sorts of sports analogies and things, and there's a lot of stuff that's a long road to get there.
Oh man.
You know. I don't know. Like boxing is a perfect analogy for that, right? You only have so many punches. There's like jab, cross, uppercut, hook.
There's 4,
5 punches.
4 or 5.
Yeah. You know, depending on who you talk to, I'm sure. But the strategies around that and how each boxer is a little bit different. They don't do the same thing from one person to the next. There's accepted practices. There's these outside realms, outside areas of thought that it's like, oh, well, that's not what, you know what I mean? Like, right. That guy's an outlier. He doesn't box like everybody else. You know, you have like, you have punchers. You have brawlers. They're just guys that go into the center of the ring and just start punching each other, and it's a war of attrition. And then you have strategists that are bobbing and weaving and dancing around and moving. There's so much more than what
you're seeing.
Yeah. And it's cool to be able to give that to somebody and be like, look, this cup is really deep. This cup of water it's
the
not
deepest cup of water.
Yeah, it's not a thimble. Like it goes super deep, and it's no matter how much you drink, you'll never get it all.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. As much how much you drink, no matter how much you drink, you'll never get it all.
Yeah.
That's something interesting that I've been really preparing for, is that getting ready to make this movie that we're making that me and my friend are making, that
Yeah.
I'm producing and starring in, is we're going to get an hour and a half of people's attention that hopefully they're going to watch this movie for an hour and a half. And it's like, we want to give the best content, the best story, the best everything in that hour and a half so you can hook people.
Yeah.
Bam, that draws them in, and then
You want them to keep going, what's going on? What's happening next?
yeah,
You know?
what's going on here? What's happening next?
Yeah.
And it's such a, it's like you said, it's respecting the person that you're teaching or that you're working with or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And respecting their time. And so that's something I've really thought about too, like giving people an hour and a half movie and making sure, it's the best thing we can give them, you know, because then they'll walk away with something.
And it's twofold. Like, all the prep work in the world isn't going to be enough to make that.
Yeah.
You know, and at a certain point, you just have to kind of be like, well, this is what we're doing, and here it is.
Yeah.
I've done everything that I can possibly do to make this as best as I could. When I first started teaching, I'd write out this huge lesson plan, like super detailed, do this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And I would stress more over the planning of it
Than the actual
event. And then after a couple of months of doing that, I'm looking at my notes, and I still have them somewhere, but I would be like, I didn't even hit half of this stuff. And I don't know if I could have done it if I would have had that person for a week, you know? And so I just started kind of getting away from over planning to where I'm like, okay, I got 3 or 4 things that I want to hit, and I'm going to do the best job I can to hit those 3 or 4 things. But I want to make sure that they get something. It doesn't matter what it is. I got to make sure that they understand something, because if they get one thing, we can build off of that.
Oh, that's
right?
Good. Yeah.
You know, because if you just hit them with the fire hose all the time, they're going to drown or burn out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Here, drink from the fire hose.
Yeah. Sometimes you hit them with the fire hose, but sometimes you give them a thimble of water. You know, and sometimes even that thimble might be too much. So then you're there with like the eyedropper or whatever, you know.
Take it down again.
Yeah. And so it just depends on people. It depends on the student. It depends on all sorts of different stuff. You know, what's going on, who you're working with, what kind of issues they've got, what stresses they're dealing with, what kind of day you've had.
Man,
Yeah,
exactly. As the teacher,
yeah, you know, and
you're coming into class and saying, I've got, everyone, I've got all these job interviews lined up.
Yeah.
You can tell you're announcing that I've got job interviews lined up, and you're kind of stressing a little bit, but then you're working through it.
Yeah, and that has been eye-opening. That's been an eye-opening experience, learning how to deal with people. Yeah.
Empty your cup.
Empty your cup.
cup.
Yeah. I've got some stuff I'm working on, and probably announce it on the next podcast. Some more changes and things that are going on, but. All good stuff. It's not quite there yet. Like, I got to get some ducks in a row before I start talking about everything that I'm working on.
Cool.
Yeah, they're in view. They're just not quite.
You're coming around that corner.
Yeah, I can see them. They're like, okay, there's one there, and here's one, but I got to bring them all into view, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. But it's exciting and it's fun, and I'm rolling the dice for sure, but I'm betting on myself. So here we go. Here we go. That's I guess that's the best thing. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm betting on myself.
If you bet on yourself, it most likely it's going to get done the best way it possibly can.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Yeah. So what else is new? Movies going along?
Just movie is going along. Yeah, we're preparing to. We're getting ready to have auditions actually a week from now.
Okay.
We're having auditions for some of the smaller roles for the movie, securing locations, getting all sorts of rad equipment to film with, like professional equipment. I've started calling movie theater owners and just cold calling movie theater owners.
Really?
Yeah.
How's that been going?
And it's been great. I during COVID, I went to a local privately owned a movie theater.
Independent?
Yeah,
movie
independent
Okay.
movie theater that is privately owned. And I met at a drive-in showing during COVID. I met the owner of this movie theater that's here locally, and he also owns a couple of other movie theaters. And so I got his business card. This was 2 years ago, and then I cold called him and I was like, "Hey, we're getting ready to film this movie, and this is what it's about. It's a road trip comedy. Can we, when I have a finished film, can we work out some sort of deal? Assuming you like it and you want to show it in your theater, can we work out some sort of deal?" And he sounded pretty positive, and he's got friends. So,
Hey.
Other movie theater owners. So we're really looking at getting a theatrical release of the movie. And yeah, it's been rad because having to lead the development and the production, pre-production, and now production of a movie, I have to kind of think about everything that you're talking about when you teach a class. The crew members, the cast members, the people. How do they learn? What do they learn?
Yeah.
How do they work?
Well,
what kind of day, what kind of week have they had?
Exactly. And you got to think about it too. Like, if you are wanting people to be excited about doing something, either for you or with you, you've got to be excited to be there too.
It's the most simple concept, but it's so hard sometimes.
Absolutely. And sometimes the simple stuff is the difficult thing. It's hard to remember.
Hard to remember.
Yeah.
Self-generating, like excitement. That's what I've been doing that a lot. Self-generating, like excitement. Even sometimes when I'm not feeling excited.
Yeah.
I still self-generate that excitement to get other people excited.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, you've wanted to make this movie for how long now?
4 years.
4 years. 4 years, and you're finally doing it. That's
doing
exciting enough.
Yeah.
And to be actually in the middle of doing it, that's the reward itself, right? Like,
ooh, yeah.
How many people were like, "Oh, you can't do that."
Quite a few naysayers.
Naysayers, and.
Well, and I'm like, well, I'm not talking to you again. Have a great life.
Yeah. Just cut them out.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm joking. I haven't done that.
No, but they're the practical people.
The practical, yep. And we gotta have practical.
You gotta have practical people, but you also have to be willing to take that risk. Even if this thing falls on its face, you still did it. You still made it. You still did it. And it was worthwhile because you learned what to do and what not to do. You also, how many people can say they did that? Not very many people could sit there and go, "I want to do something X, whatever X is, make a movie, write a song, get a black belt, restore a car, whatever."
Get a degree.
Yeah, or get a degree. The amount of people that want and the amount of people that do are vastly different.
Yeah, that's
good. You gotta.
That's good.
Even if you fail, you still haven't failed. You did it. That's admirable. That's admirable. There are a lot of people that didn't do.
A lot of talkers.
Well,
talk is cheap.
Absolutely.
That doesn't apply to us, though.
Oh, it could. It could. But
a lot of people just
well, you get caught up.
You get caught up in talking and,
You
about doing something. I want to do this, and
life gets in the way. There's still bills that have to be paid.
Yeah.
There's still food that needs to be prepared. There's still all of your chores and daily tasks that have to get done. And it's like how you manage your free time. Because everybody has free time. Everyone does. Well, unless you're in prison or
right.
or some other ailment, you do have a certain amount of free time. And it's like, well, what are you doing with that extra time? You could be just sitting at home picking your nose watching TV, or you could be doing this other thing, working towards it. And that actually, I've been talking to Mark, the guy, Mark, the editor or the audio guy who edits our podcast for us, a lot lately, almost daily. And we were talking about work and the actual work, and he was saying, and it was really good. He's probably going to chastise me for this because I'm gonna butcher some of it. So I apologize now. But he was saying that most people, if you think about it, really are only good for about 2 hours when you're at work.
Yeah.
Like, you go into some place to work and people got to get their coffee and they kind of get ready and they're, okay. And then they work for about 2 hours really solidly. And then the rest of that time, you got lunch in there and thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow or what you're going to do after work. And there's all this other stuff, right? So you got 2 hours that are really good. And then the rest of it's kind of like mediocre. Right. But he was saying, so like when things get really crazy, he's like, if I'm getting super busy, I go, okay, I've got 2 hours that I need to do this. And I'm going to give 2 hours of nothing but my A+ best work. So at least if I do nothing else, I've got that done. And I know that is excellent. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I never really thought about it that way before. And when you think it, and when I would think about stuff like a day at work, there's a lot of time where things aren't really happening, right? Where you're just kind of going through the motions. And that makes sense to me. But the other thing that he said is no matter what goes on that day, I always try and accomplish one goal a day. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I like that. So that's one of my things that I'm trying to organize myself with. No matter what, just try and have one goal manageable that I finish, that I get done. Yeah, that's my thing. I'm going to do that. And even if the day goes sideways on me, at least I did one thing. So making progress, it might be slower than I'd like, but I'm still making that progress. I'm still working towards something.
Yeah. That's really good point. That's kind of something that I thought about recently too. We might have talked about that on a previous podcast, or
maybe
something.
We did.
I think you did, where you have a day and you have just get something good accomplished in one day.
Well, and it's progress.
It's progress. Because I'll have days working working on this movie where I'm like, did I get anything done today? And if there was just one email I sent out or one phone call had accomplished something, I'm like, oh, that was good.
I worked this out. I got that thing off my list, and it's one less thing that I'm going to have to work on tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or it paves the way for the next project. Or the next, it set the building block for the next thing to go on top, or whatever.
Like you said, you got one thing that's stuck, and you can build off that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I do have a private lesson coming in. We got a few more minutes. I'm really excited to hear you working on that movie. Are you still doing your other jobs as well? Working?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
My normal day job. Yeah. Processor.
So you're putting that in between everything else that's going on in life.
Yeah, pretty much. Like my real day job has gotten, I only do that 2 days a week. And so I can categorize that, do that for the week, get that done. And
then you're free.
Then I'm free the rest of the week.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about earlier, where like you've got free time. So instead of sitting on your butt, you're like, okay, let's make a movie. You're taking that free time and you're doing something with it.
Making something constructive
with it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, and you get so far down those roads of like getting everything ready, and this movie is already in motion, and it's been not so like kind of to back up. It's a nice thing because we put the production of this film in motion. Like it's moving.
Yeah.
Like, we're spending now our budget on this movie going. It's almost like in a movie, like in a Western, where the train leaves the station and it's like, it's leaving whether you want to be on it or not. Like, you better be running
to catch up.
Or just to get on that train.
Yeah.
And it's this great feeling because it's this thing. That's something to illuminate that a little bit more that I always liked about group classes, college classes, a classroom, is that you have a teacher and a location and you have a class that's going to happen, right? Whether you're there or not, and you can choose to be there or not, but that thing's happening and it pulls you almost out of your own world and your own like, I'm on my own schedule, my own time.
But I have to be here.
Here now, and it gets you almost outside yourself, because you're not. Because we live in such a day and age where it's under, for good, for better or for worse, it's all about the individual, right? Mm-hmm. We all custom tailor our phones to ourselves, our computers, our houses, our vehicles. Everything's custom tailored how we want it. We go into a restaurant, we order this most specific meal of how we want it,
Yeah.
And
we get pissed if it's not right.
It's not right. But it's so nice to have things outside of ourselves like karate class that it's almost like a standard to meet. You have to be at a certain time at this class in this uniform that is outside of you maybe initially, to where it's like, somebody could be like, well, I'm gonna show up at 45 minutes late for class in my street clothes, and it's like, no, that's not gonna work.
That's not gonna fly.
That's not gonna fly.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have those standards, but that goes back to the movie. It's so rewarding that this thing is in motion, and I, like me and the crew and everyone, it's moving. It's its own thing moving, and we've got to keep up, and it's so exciting and so much fun.
Very cool. That's great, man. That's great.
That's my whole life right now is making this movie. So
very cool.
Keep everyone updated. Hopefully, you can go to your local movie theater and see it at some point.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Are you gonna have a showing party?
We're gonna have a premiere. Hopefully, have a premiere here in town at one of those nice movie theaters, and
not a bad one. A nice one.
Well,
I don't know. Is there a bad movie theater now?
No. Yeah, definitely not having it not in a bad theater. Yeah, no. We got the local, theater that's from the 1920s or whatever.
Yeah. Cascade.
Theater,
that would be awesome.
And have the movie premiere there, and but anyways, we got to make the movie first.
Yeah, for sure. Get it done. Well, let's wrap it up. Until next time, friends. Keep listening. Keep watching out for YouTube videos. We made a few shorts and those seem to take off. If you're listening to this, make sure you're subscribing and give us a little review, please. Begging, please give me a review. We've got a couple and they're pretty awesome, and enjoying it. So until next time.
Thanks for listening.